Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay, here to talk about a new Netflix film, The Burial, which stars Jamie Foxx and Tommy Lee Jones. And basically, this film exposes the corruption behind the burial industry, the funeral industry, if you will, or the burial insurance industry, to be precise. It's based on a true story. It is based on the 1995 case of uh, Jeremiah O'Keefe, who was a funeral owner, owns several funeral homes in the state of Mississippi, and Lumens, uh, the insurance company that bought him out. Um, hey, what's going on, Sean? Uh, yeah, Lowens, that's the name of the company. Sorry, my bad. Lowens. And Jamie Foxx plays the lawyer. Uh, and basically, what they're showing you, like I said, is that lawyers are mad corrupt. It starts out with uh, Jamie Foxx's character, um, going to court. He's a personal injury attorney. So basically, what he does is like, say you got hurt on the job, or you got hurt like riding a bike, like he does in his first scene with his one client, and he basically helps you get settlements. But Tommy Lee Jones's character, who owns all these funeral homes, he had to sell his some of his funeral homes, most of them, to this guy, Lewins, right? So when they do the contract, Lewins on his end doesn't fulfill the contract, doesn't close the contract. So basically, Tommy Lee Jones doesn't get no money. And not only that, there was a deal in the contract that this guy couldn't sell burial insurance in the southern part of Mississippi, and he continues to do so. Dude flies him out to Vancouver, British Columbia, to to romance him, basically, to talk sweet to him, lobster dinner and everything. And Tommy Lee Jones is he has to do this because he wants to preserve something for his kids. He has 14 children, 26 grandchildren, and this funeral home parlor has been in his family for generations. But he just doesn't have the money to keep up with it anymore. And if he doesn't sell it, the government is going to repossess it. So he sells it to the people, and basically at the dinner, the guy, Lowen, tells him, "Listen, I don't care. I'll sell insurance at high premiums, even though I know the people won't be able to pay it. And when it comes time for them to bury their loved one, they will. Uh, I will raise the premium so that they won't be able to bury their loved ones." Basically, he's engaging in unfair business practices, and Tommy Lee Jones doesn't think um, that this this is ethical. So he basically wants to sue him and take him to court. Now people are telling him, you know, no, this guy, they're too big. They're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. There's no way that a little funeral home owner, you from uh, Biloxi, Mississippi, can be able to compete with this big funeral home. Uh, this big funeral insurance company, this big multi corporation. He says, "Watch me." and even his lawyer, his first lawyer, doesn't believe in him. Mike Alford doesn't believe in him. He's like, yo, let's just settle out of court. But the young kid he's working with, played by Mahmoud Alti, Hal, does believe in him. He travels with him even to Vancouver. It's his team. It's Mike the lawyer, Tommy Lee Jones, and this kid. And you could tell uh, when the kid steps off the plane that there's some kind of uneasiness with his lawyer, Mike, and this kid. He's like, oh, that's the kid, that tall kid. You know what I mean? And you can get the sense that this guy, being an old time Mississippi lawyer, that he has some racism in him. And it comes out later in the film that that is indeed the case. You know what I mean? So they want to settle out, right? They just want to close the deal, sell the three funeral homes to Lowens, and that's it. But the kid, he's like, how? He's like, no, let's not do it. We're not getting our portion of the deal that we made on our end. They're not closing the deal, so we're not getting the money for the three funeral homes. So let's take it to trial. Finally, Jerry decides, I'm going to take it to trial, and they take him down. They take him down to Florida. First, he shows him. First, he shows him a video of, and this is a real video of Willie E. Gary's profile on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, and the kid Hal says, "This is the guy that you need. You need Willie E. Gary. He's a flashy lawyer. He knows how to talk. He has the gift of the gab. He basically got this kid the settlement on the bicycle case, even though the kid was himself drunk as a skunk, as Willie E. Gary says in the opening, in his closing statements in the first trial. Drunk as a skunk, basically uh, driving in the middle of the night, not knowing where he's going. He still got this kid the settlement. So he's a good lawyer. He's able to talk anybody out of anything. So they travel down to Florida. They travel down to Florida where he lives, and they watch him in action, and they try to convince him that this is the case. This is the case that he needs. One of the reasons why they want him on the case specifically is because they're going to be working within Hinds County, Mississippi, a county that is predominantly African American. So they feel like they'll have a predominantly African American, um, uh, jury, and if they have a fancy talking black lawyer, that will get them to sympathize with Jerry O'Keefe, whereas they probably wouldn't otherwise. They probably just look at him as a redneck, right? You know what I mean? So they're playing up the racial politics of this situation. You know, so they travel. They talk to him. He says, "But look, I'm not in contract law. I'm a personal injury attorney. I get individual settlements, against companies, but I don't deal with contracts. I don't deal with deals. I don't deal with selling, none of that stuff. I just get people, money if they've been hurt." But uh, so he kicks them out. And he says, "No, forget it." The kid Hal tries to convince him that when Jerry was mayor of Biloxi in the 1960s, he didn't grant permits to the Ku Klux Klan to do their rallies, basically. And in real life too, Jerry O'Keefe was a champion of civil rights when he was the two terms that he was mayor of Biloxi. So they try to convince him to take on the case when it comes to that. Uh, Jamie Foxx, he still says no. You know what I mean? He still says, I don't deal with white clients and I don't deal with contract disputes. Finally, the kid Hal comes back in and tells him, listen, you take this on, you'll be one of the most well-known black lawyers in all of America. You could be the next Johnny Cochran. Keep in mind, this is 1995. The OJ trial is all over TV, and Johnny Cochran, as a lawyer, is a superstar. I mean, he is the man. Johnny Cochran is the best lawyer, in all the world at this time. So of course, a young African American attorney like Willie E. Gray wants to aspire to be like Johnny Cochran. So that appeals to his ego because one thing about him, he's very egotistical. He has uh, his own private jet, right, called the House of Justice. You know what I mean? He has Rolex watches, expensive Rolls Royce. He dresses nice. He's very egotistical. You appeal to his ego, he's good. So he finally says, "Yeah, I'll do it." So they go down to Mississippi, and now keep in mind you have to try to mix the old lawyer Mike's team, which is all white guys, all Southern white guys, with uh, Willie Gray's team, and it's very funny. It's a very funny scene where he comes in and he says, "Do you have a problem working with black folk?" And he goes, "Yeah, I kind of do. I can't lie. The lawyer, Mike, I am kind of prejudiced." And then comes behind him a bunch of other black attorneys. He says, "Well, too bad. I'm taking over. I'm taking over now." And basically, they try to apply their logic and their skill to this case. But in the beginning, they don't really have a hook, like other than this shady deal that Lowen had done to Jerry O'Keefe. They don't really have a hook to say, well, they've been doing other shady stuff to other people. And that's really what they're searching for. So Sean says he's definitely gonna watch it later. Um, so they're trying to search for something that they could sink their teeth into because you just can't sue somebody just because you know you feel like they did wrong. You had to be able to prove it somehow. So later on down the line, the Canadian company Lowens, discovers that he has a black lawyer in a majority black county, right? So they're like, oh, well, we need a black lawyer. So they call Journey Smollett, and she's a female black lawyer. She also is very ambitious. She's a go-getter. She's never won a case. Jamie Foxx's character has won 12 cases, never lost a case. She's eager to prove herself against him. You know what I mean? And she has the money on her side. So he gets a team of black lawyers. Like he gets the best black lawyers. He gets the dream team of black lawyers. Like when it comes to black lawyers, he's got Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan. He's got everybody. You know what I'm saying? You got who's who of black law, the big company. And they don't think they could win. So uh, Jamie Foxx character says, let's put uh, Tommy Lee Jones character on the stand, as a character witness. We could say that he worked in civil rights, that he was when he was mayor, he stuck up for black people in the town, and that'll give him some sympathy. But when this girl cross-examines him, man, they find out that somebody he was dealing with in his funeral home business went to jail. They found out that in the past he embezzled money. You know, they just really bullied him on the stand. And Tommy Lee Jones looked like he was about to cry because that's how bad it was. Like it was shit that he didn't tell Jamie Foxx. You know what I mean? It was shit that he didn't disclose to his lawyer about the shady business and practices that he had done in his own in his own funeral home, not related to race, but just related to doing people dirty. So Tommy Lee Jones said, "You're supposed to be with me, not against me," and he fires Jamie Foxx as the lead lawyer, and they bring in the other white guy that was the lead lawyer. Then they get the idea to cross-examine him, and they put him on the stand, and they reveal that his grandfather was a member of the KKK. And the scene is crazy because Journey Smollett is badgering him. Who's your grandfather? Who's your grandfather? You know, where did your grandfather come from? And he doesn't want to say it because, again, it's a majority black jury and that'll work against his client. He finally says, yes, my grandfather was a member of the KKK. And it puts him in a very compromising position because, I mean, hey, he's working with black attorneys. He's working, in a majority black district in Mississippi. He doesn't want to, he don't want to denounce his grandfather. And let's just face it, he probably believes that too. You know what I'm saying? Like nothing for nothing, he probably still believes it. You know what I mean? So now it's looked like they lost the case completely. But then through digging, they find out that the insurance policy company Loans, have been dealing with the National Baptist Convention, which is the largest black religious organization in America, and they have been selling them burial insurance and cutting them short. Many of them uh, were buried without headstones and without um, caskets, and they weren't given back the money that they invested when it came to their families' funeral homes, and they were being basically robbed of everything, of their family's fortunes. So when they discover this, now they have a hook. Now they have something that they could really nail them on just when they were about to quit. And there's this poignant scene where um, Jerry, the white guy that played by Tommy Lee Jones, that Jamie Foxx is working for, is driving down to Florida, and he and he to meet with Jamie Foxx and tell him, listen, I want to quit the case, I want to drop out, and they show like slave graves, you know what I mean, like old school graves of people of slaves that were unmarked, and it really strikes you how um, how unimportant black life is to so many of these big corporations back during slavery as well as today. And then as the trial goes on, eventually, long story short, they catch this guy, Lumen, and they catch him doing shady shit, stealing from the people, and they put him on the stand, and he actually admits it, and they win the case, and they wanted to go for $100 million. They ended up uh, winning for 400 million, and they did in real life. They did settle for $125 million, but Willie E. Gary went on to become the Giant Killer. He went on to take on Disney. He went on to take on Anheuser Busch. In the 2000s, he sued Disney over the ESPN World concept, which they had stolen from somebody else. And basically, he earned that moniker, the Giant Killer, because he took on these big corporations. Definitely a worthy watch, I would say. I mean, it drags on a little bit, you know what I mean, because a lot of it is like dealing with law and business. Uh, a lot of it is dealing with law and business. Would I recommend at least, and how many stars? I would give it about 3, 4 stars. I wouldn't say it's a spectacular movie because uh, I mean, his story is spectacular. Well, why he became a lawyer is spectacular, and the case that they won is spectacular because there is a lot of bullying in the corporate world. There is a lot of taking advantage of small business owners in the corporate world. But uh, this is not like, I mean, it's dealing with racism and it's dealing with social issues, but it's not dealing with hardcore social issues in a sense. Like, I mean, yeah, they were doing racist shit, this company, but it wasn't like it's dealing with like Mississippi burning, for example. This is rather lighthearted. And like I said, it can get a little bit in the weeds when it comes to like the legal stuff. If you don't really understand, which I don't understand about, corporate contracts and shit like that, you could be like, well, where is this movie really going? But I would say the strength of it is between the friendship that develops between Tommy Lee Jones and Jamie Lee Foxx's character of Jerry and Willie. There's this one scene where they're on Willie's plane and they're playing Tony, Tony, Tony feels good, and he's trying to get him into the song. So later on, when they actually win the case and he settles out, Tommy Lee Jones remembers the song and he's like, "Feels good, feels good." He's dancing around the table. That's the funny part. You know what I mean? So so, yeah, he got soul. So yeah, soul. Yeah, that's a funny part, but it can drag on a little bit when it comes to the legal parts, especially if you don't know about corporate law or contract law or anything. It's like, well, I don't know what they're talking about, but it's pretty easy to figure out. Basically, or just people had insurance policies and they weren't giving them back, their insurance policies, and because of that, they weren't allowed to bury their loved ones. They had to bury their loved ones in unmarked graves with no tombstones. You know, and it became a social justice issue as time went on, and it became bigger. It's kind of a serious movie. It is a comedy. It does have funny parts, just because Willie Gary is very boisterous. You know what I mean? Jamie Lee Foxx's character of Willie Gary, the real Willie Gary, is a very boisterous and funny character. He's a lawyer, but he's more like a preacher. Think of again Johnny Cochran. Think of those type of lawyers. Their rhetoric is more preacher esque. And the way they carry on is more preacher esque and unconventional. It's sort of like, okay, it's a legal movie in the same vein as like My Cousin Vinny is a legal movie. Like he's an unconventional lawyer. Like he's not. This is not a serious legal movie like Philadelphia or or one of those legal movies. This is like I would compare it to My Cousin Vinny, because how Joe Pesci's character, he's an attorney, right? But he's an unconventional attorney. The things he says, so, you know, uh, he's held in contempt a lot of times. It does have a serious tone in the sense that it deals with racial issues, but I think the downside to it is it tries to deal with racial issues at the same time when dealing with this. And another downside to it is that this in the beginning wasn't a racial case. It became that. You know what I mean? Because of the clients that they were dealing with. That they were dealing with the national had to deal with that, the National Baptist Convention, but it wasn't really a racial case, which is one of the reasons why Tommy Lee Jones's character didn't want to take on Willie Gray in the beginning either, because he's like dragging race into something where race has no place in. You know what I mean? He jipped me on a business deal. You know what I mean? Uh, I sold my company. He didn't give me the profits to it. That happens all the time in business mergers, right? That has nothing to do with race. He's a white guy. I'm a white guy. You know, you know what I mean. But it became a racial issue because of the clients that they were dealing with, and how big corporations take advantage of poor African American clients. You know what I mean? But I think it tries to fit a racial narrative sometimes into areas where there is no racial narrative, just because it takes place in Mississippi Southern attitudes, on race and certain racist lawyers and sketchy backgrounds. So that's another downside to it. But uh, I get where they were trying to go. You know what I mean? But I just feel like, and plus because it's 1995 and the OJ trial is in the air, and it's 3 years removed from Rodney King, so there's still a lot of racial tension in the United States. But I'm saying if you take the racial component out of the movie, you know what I'm saying, you still have a case of injustice. You still have a case of corporations taking advantage of the common man. This guy, Willie Gary, took on not only Walt Disney, not only Anheuser-Busch, he took on the tobacco companies and won. You know what I mean? So he is a brilliant lawyer, and he's brilliant with working for the common people. So when I first watched this, I thought it was going to be some kind of, you know, like No Mercy, right? That Michael B. Jordan movie that Jamie Foxx was it Just Mercy or No Mercy, either one that Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx did, but it's nothing like that really. It's and then I thought Tommy Lee Jones is going to be racist, and he's going to be the one to grow, and he's going to learn that his racial attitudes are going to change because of how he deals with Willie Gary. That wasn't the case either. So the racial angle is corporations versus the average black citizen versus, and not a racial tension between the two. Yeah, Journey Smollett. Yeah, Journey Smollett. Yeah. From East Bayou, the little girl from East Bayou, and she was in the original Selma, Lord Selma, and she was, I think, on the Cosby Show as a kid. I can't remember, but yeah, she's in it. But that's one of the changes with real life. In this real life case, he didn't fight against a woman; he fought against a man. You know what I mean? But I think they wanted some female representation. Uh, they wanted some female representation in the movie, obviously. So they went with a female lawyer that he fought against, and there was no sexual tension between them because the Jamie Foxx character was married, so there was none of that. But uh, just two young black attorneys reacting to the social climate of the time, and they discussed the OJ trial. And he asked her point blank, does she think OJ did it? And she says she does. And then he asked her, this this does she think that she could defend a guy that she known did it? Known was guilty. And she says, yeah, which she ends up actually doing. She knows that Lowen is guilty in this case, and she ends up defending. My favorite scene is like a lot of lawyers do. My favorite scene in this movie was when they finally get Lowen the, to admit he doesn't care about the people that he's selling fake um, life insurance policies to. Because they ask him, "How you're a billionaire? How much does your boat cost?" And he doesn't know. So in other words, or he claimed he doesn't know. In other words, he's not even keeping track of his own stuff. How is he supposed to keep track of them? Glad to know that Tommy Lee Jones is still acting outside of Men in Black movies. Yes, Tommy Lee Jones is a brilliant actor. Um, but his performance here gave me uh, gave me vibes of when he was in Lincoln. I don't know. Uh, when he was in Lincoln, he played the real life abolitionist Senator Thaddeus Stevens, who, keep in mind, Thaddeus Stevens in the 1860s, was married to a black woman. You know what I mean? In the pre-Civil War South as a senator, and he was the most ardent abolitionist out of all the radical Republicans at the time, even more so than Lincoln. And you get to see Tommy Lee Jones portraying him and speaking up in Congress against these pro slavery, these other pro slavery senators. And it just goes to show you how Tommy Lee Jones is one of the best actors ever in Hollywood. And of course, in The Fugitive, he was good. And speaking of The Fugitive, his his character um, was supposed to be played by Harrison Ford, but uh, you know, they passed on Harrison Ford and they went with him. So I'm glad they went with him because he's a Southerner. You know what I mean? He gives off that Southerner vibe. Harrison Ford doesn't. You know what I mean? Harrison Ford doesn't have a Southern accent. I mean, granted, an actor can portray a Southern accent, but usually you can tell, like they always say about John Goodman. John Goodman, you know that John Goodman has been to Louisiana, has been around Louisiana because every time John Goodman does a Louisiana accent, like for example in Brother Where Art Thou, he does it really well. You know what I mean? He doesn't fake it. So, and Jamie Foxx, man, brilliant in this. Jamie Foxx is an example of a guy that can do it all. You know what I mean? Comedy, drama. He can make you feel sad. He can make you feel happy. And it runs the gambit of emotions in this movie as well. You know, from a con man lawyer to a genuine concerned citizen. And what I liked about Tommy Lee Jones, going back to him, his performance was he's so old that when he's up on the stand and they're really beating him down in cross examinations, you feel sad for him. You feel sorry for him. He feels pitiful. He feels pitiful. You know what I mean? Because he's so old and he gives those old, pitiful expressions with his face. But I thought this was a really inspiring story, you know, of how the little man could win in a big case. Uh, was this his first movie out since he got sick? I think Cloning Tyrone was, but I didn't watch Cloning Tyrone, so I don't know. But yeah, he looks the same to me. All that hoopla that he got cloned, that that's a different Jamie Foxx. To me, that looks like the Jamie Foxx that I've been watching on freaking TV since he had the show, the Jamie Foxx show back in the mid '90s. So overall, I give this a 4 out of 5 stars again because it drags on the legal stuff.